It's not the $1 million, right? Yeah, this is a serious thing, and it changes every day. We're learning all the time. So, welcome. We good? Shabbat Shalom, everybody. So tonight, the service is about Shabbat. I know it's shocking, right? That the theme is Shabbat. What did we do?
Did I do that?
What was that?
I'm real loud, though. You might want to.
Yeah, he's really
loud.
because he's on her
You
mic
turn
from
me
last
down.
time. You want to try this? Watch. Wait. No. Try that.
Is that better? That seems better.
Okay. All right, we're getting there.
Okay.
Always tech stuff. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Max, popping. Okay. We will try to stop popping. We're not doing it on purpose, that's for sure. Can you hear us? Okay. Shabbat. Do you remember last week? Do you remember last Friday night? We had an almost packed house here last Friday night because we had a bat mitzvah. So it may be an easier Friday night to remember if we want to say, what was Friday like? What was this week like? But then there was everything after that too. Do you remember? It's a really good exercise to try to sit back on Friday as the service is beginning, as Shabbat is beginning, and try to figure out what you did last week. For many reasons. This past week for me was one of the ultimate mitzvah that you can do in some sense is when you help a family with death. And here's a fun, not fun, here's an interesting Hebrew tidbit for you. The word for funeral in Hebrew is levaya. In Yiddish, you'll say a levaya. I had to go to a levaya, a funeral. But it has to do with accompanying. That's what the word means, to accompany. And I really like that as a concept about what is happening in a service. So it is an ultimate mitzvah, is to be there for a family and for the deceased to be able to help them with that. And that's where I've been ever since last Saturday. I've been helping this family. And it's a family that was mostly at Agudath Achim. I don't know how many people at Bnei Zion knew the family. Yeah. And by the way, her maiden name of Gross was not related at all to the Gross family that was here. It was Polish and not connected to David Gross in any way. But you know, you come to Shreveport, and almost everybody, it feels like in Shreveport, is related to somebody. And when you get a connection like that, you get all excited. I do. Every time I find somebody who has a similar last name to me, then I think about, but chances are not very good that I'm related to anyone who was either a Finkelstein or a Lawrence is impossible, or not even the De Benedettis in this state are related to me. Or Weiners. They're Weiner Wieners that I'm related to, but I don't seem to be related to anybody. But it's a very powerful thing, and when you're attaching it. So it makes me think even more about what this week was like for you, because it puts things into a new perspective. So think about it. I hope you accomplished something wonderful, whatever it was, whether it was getting healthy, or whether it was, I don't know, cleaning out that junk drawer, or whatever it is you had to do that you wished you had done and you got it done. Making your way out of the confines of your spaces and coming to be with us. You had a successful show last week. That's good. So you have a point of reference of what last week was like too. And we're looking at the future. So August starts this weekend, which is a little bit hard to believe, isn't it? August again? Do you know what year we're in? My sense of time is so bizarre right now. I realize it's partially because, okay, it's embarrassing to admit, but I think that in Shreveport, my clothes don't change throughout the year. I can wear the same thing in the winter as I wear in the summer. And I can wear, everything from my clothing, because I kind of didn't go out at all, to my pajamas. I'm using the same stuff all year long. I don't know what season it is. I don't know what's going on. And it's a good thing to at least have Shabbat. I spoke to Spencer Reichman, who says he would be happy to be a soloist again this year. But he also I told this story a few weeks ago. He said that he wound up not getting to do any of the jobs that he was supposed to do in New York and things at the beginning of the pandemic, and he had to move in with his parents. And the only way they knew about the passage of time was that it was really important with that many adults in the house to know what night to put the trash can out. So it got collected. So they called it Erev Trash. And they knew about Erev Trash every week. And Shabbat is a lot like Erev Trash, because you start the day in the evening, which is such a cool concept to me. It says there was evening and there was morning. And at first I used to think that's just bizarre. I mean, ever since you're in kindergarten, you think of the sunshine picture on the calendar, and then it's daytime, and then the night is sleep time, so that's the end of your day. But if you think about how cool it is that the beginning of your day is when everything is slowing down, it's getting darker, and then you rest. And then you start, in the middle of the day, you start doing things, the middle of your day, until it's time to rest again, and that's the beginning of a new day and the possibilities as soon as it gets dark. And I felt like that's what it feels like to be a new year as well, because in New York, where I was growing up, it was getting cold in September as we were preparing for the High Holy Days, and the trees were getting more stark, and it was getting colder, and it was like the nighttime of the year. The evening of the year was moving in the fall. And why would you start a new year as it was slowing down and becoming the evening of the year? But it matches what happens with the day and how all of our days start in the evening. So I want you to think about that as you appreciate Shabbat and the fact that we begin our day of rest with watching the sun go down and knowing that we have some rest. And it's a really important thing. The other thing that I like to say about Shabbat is I realized at some point that if I have to prove why there is a God, and some of you know I have a master's degree in philosophy, and that's a topic that they talk about a lot in philosophy classes, is how do you prove if there's a God or not? And it's, well, if there's a creation, then there must be a creator and all these things. And those didn't impress me as much as realizing that if humans were writing all the laws, and I'm sure, and humans like to write laws, but if humans were writing all of the laws, then the law about keeping Shabbat probably wouldn't look like what it does now. It wouldn't be that you take one day off every 7 days. It would be take more time off, or take every evening off, or something like that. It would not be one time every 7 days. But it feels like a really good amount of time to what I like to call rejuvenate, to get enough rest and be energized for a new week. So there is a God. And here we are ready to appreciate that. We're going to take a deep breath, and you'll see why I'm going to do that over here. Because we didn't light the candles. And we can light the candles because it's still not dark. Have you seen one of these? I haven't gotten to show off one of my new toys. This is, you recharge it by plugging it into one of the same kinds of things that you recharge your phone. And I don't know if you can see it, but it makes this little teeny flame that's electric kind of a flame. So I wouldn't be able to do this on Shabbat. I would feel very uncomfortable about doing it on Shabbat, but before Shabbat, and it's really good for camping. It doesn't blow up. So it stays on for a moment, lets you light your flames, and then it doesn't blow out, and it's not hot. It's pretty cool. That's the techie rabbi loves this kind of stuff. But we're going to turn to page 82, and before we do that, we're going to take a deep breath and let it out slowly. Take the joy that you experienced this week, the difficulties you experienced, inhale it, and then just let it out. Let it all out. Try one more time. Let it out. Let the good stuff stay in, but let the bad stuff go out. We turn to page 82 and we rise. Please join me. These lights are only flickering flames, yet flames illumine our uncertain steps. Flames remind us of Sabbaths long past and of their beauty that delighted our hearts. May they inspire us to work for the great Sabbath of peace. We're going to do this. B'chi b'shemoy, b'chi b'shemoy, b'chi b'shemoy. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kedeshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. It's Shabbat. You see those candles dancing? It's Shabbat. So I would like you to take a look at somebody that you came in with, someone you didn't come in with, say Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Make sure everybody gets a Shabbat Shalom. And you may be seated. And we're going to go directly to page 84 because I love this part. So if you can suspend, any idea? Nope. If you can I think it may be the batteries. That's my prediction, but we've got to call in. No idea, guys. If you can suspend for a moment the need to have your to-do list, and if you can suspend for a moment the concept of all of the things that you have to worry about during the work week, and if you can imagine for a moment that we are taking a vacation in time every weekend, then you can also appreciate for a moment that there are angels that accompany us all the time, but on Shabbat, these are peaceful angels. And that's what we sing about when we sing Shalom Aleichem on page 84.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Ni l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedechem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
The synagogue is the sanctuary of Israel. Born of our longing of the living God, it has been to Israel throughout our wanderings a visible token of the presence of God in our people's midst. Its beauty is the beauty of holiness. Steadfast it has stood as the champion of justice, mercy, and peace.
Its truths are true for all people. Its love is a love for all people. Its God is the God of all people. As it has been said, my house shall be called a house of prayer for all peoples.
Let all the family of Israel, all who hunger for righteousness, all who seek the eternal, find God here, and here find life. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah.
Amen.
Ve'alma divrach yiruteh, v'yamlich malchuteh.
B'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayedechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala, ba'agala, uvizman kariv, v'meru, amen.
Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach, le'alam u'almei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpahar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, ויתהדר, ויתעלה, ויתהלל, שמך דקודשה,
בריחו,
לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה.
תושבחתה ונחמתה, תאמירן בעלמא, ומרו, אמן.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
We're at the top of page 87. I was supposed to let the people online know that we're in service 3 tonight, and we're at the top of page 87. Oh God, how can we know you? Where can we find you? You are as close to us as breathing, yet you are farther than the farthermost star. You are as mysterious as the vast solitudes of night, yet as familiar to us as the light of the sun. To Moses you said, "You cannot see my face, but I will make all my goodness pass before you." Even so does your goodness pass before us in the realm of nature and in the joys and sorrows of life.
When justice burns within us like a flaming fire, when love evokes willing sacrifice from us, when to the last full measure of selfless devotion, we demonstrate our belief in the ultimate triumph of truth and righteousness, then your goodness enters our lives and we can begin to change the world. And then you live within our hearts, and we through righteousness behold your presence. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, emet. So if it's just us, I'm going to tell you something. Some of you already know this. If you look at the Hebrew on page 89, you will see Hebrew letters, you will see dots and dashes underneath it, and those are the vowels. They're vowel markings. It used to crack me up because people would say, well, how can you write Hebrew without any vowels? If you say shalom, but you don't write any vowels, you still say the ah and the o. You just don't see the vowels. But on page 88, that section, the chunk that's actually 2 paragraphs, not only does it have vowels, but it also has what we call the trope marks. And the trope marks tell you a few things. One is it tells you where the accented syllable is. Number 2 is it tells you, so you can sound good when you read each word, whether you know what you're saying or not. Hebrew is a what you see is what you get language. If you see a ba, it's going to be a ba. And if it's got an ah, it's going to be an ah. It's not going to be like in English. If I write something with a B and an A, then you don't know if it's going to be an A or an A or an A. You don't know what it's going to sound like. So that's when you have a name like Jana, you find out all the possible combinations of what an A might sound like. But it's going to sound the same. But it also tells you how to phrase them. So the unofficial way of looking at it is, if remember, Hebrew's going from right to left. If you see a vowel mark that looks like it's pointing to the next word, it's going to go with the next word. If it looks like it's pointing to the word before it, then you're going to keep these grouped together. And every once in a while, you're going to see one that's an up and down, and then you're going to get to take a little break because it's kind of like a colon or a period or something like that. And it's really pretty cool to be able to read like that. And it also tells us the melody. And when you think about why would we need something, your scriptures, your Torah, why does it have to have a melody? And it's a very cool thing, because if you want to read it to people and have them pay any attention, it's a lot more enjoyable to hear it sung than just read. And it's a lot more enjoyable if it's already telling you how to group the words together. But especially this one, because this one, we have the trope markings in the book, and we try to teach all of our students and all of our adults the melody. And depending on where you live, the melody may be different. The trope marks may be a different melodic line. The Italian Jews sing a different melody than the Eastern European Jews, and even in the Eastern European Jews, they've changed it. I grew up with the melody we're still singing here, because it's what I grew up with. One day, one of the top cantorial people in the Reform movement came to Shreveport and told me that I'm singing a conservative melody. This is the melody that I grew up with in Reform congregations, so it surprised me that she said that. But there's nuances. But I get to the parts where you get the drama in the melody, and you know that what you're talking about is drama, and it's exciting. So in the second paragraph, the second word, where it says, Ani Adonai Elohechem, that's drama. I love doing that with drama. And it means, I am Adonai, y'all's God. And I mean, you don't get more dramatic than saying that right there. So I just love that. And you don't see that. Let's see, it says, I am your eternal God who led you out of Egypt. It's not the same as, I am your eternal God. And then it keeps going. I just like that. So listen for the drama, because it keeps it interesting. I think we fixed the microphone too. On page 89, there are more scriptural quotes. You can tell that it's a direct quote from Scripture, because if you look at, on page 89, if you look at the second word, so remember we're going from right to left. So there's the teeny little word that means redemption, Gitwala, has no vowels. Then underneath that it says Ani, and then it says Adonai, above where it says I, the Eternal One. Do you see where it says Adonai? It's spelled out Yud He Vav He. There's not even any vowel markings on there. If you see the words spelled out with those the four-letter name of God, Yud He Vav He, then you know it's a direct quote from Torah. Because, no, it's not on this page, but because if you turn, let's say, to the next page, turn to 9091. And if you go to the top of the page, the very last line, it says, Baruch Atah Adonai, and Adonai looks like two little hooks flying in the air. So it shows you a couple of cool things. One is the Hebrew letters, the letters that supposedly God used to create the world, that came from God. They come from up here and they come down to us. English letters are all based on the bottom line, and then they get built up. But Hebrew letters come from here and they come down to us. So those two letters flying in the air, that's Adonai in prayer book Hebrew. But when you see the four-letter name, if we go back to the page where we were, page 89, on that page, every time you see Adonai, it's a four-letter name. That's how it's written in the Torah. There's one other way that we're going to spell Adonai in this prayer book, and we'll get to it in a couple pages. Well, I'll show it to you, if I remember. I'll show it to you there. But then you know that it's a scriptural quote. And I say this because just like I get joy in saying, Ani Adonai Elohechem, and feeling the drama, I don't think I'm God when I'm singing it dramatically. I just hear God's voice, or hear God's drama saying it. So it's the same thing that's happening here on page 89, where we're quoting, I, the Eternal One. So there's a precious story that I remembered hearing when I was growing up, but it eventually happened here once, about how the rabbi is standing up on the bima with a robe and being dramatic and talking to people, and a little kid thought that was God, because you keep saying things like, I am God. So I am not God, and that's why I'm showing you that these are quotes. I didn't want to say these things. I am quoting God. Page 89. I, the Eternal One, have called you to righteousness and taken you by the hand and kept you. I have made you a covenant people, a light to the nations.
We are Israel, witness to the covenant between God and God's children.
This is the covenant I make with Israel. I will place my Torah in your midst and write it upon your hearts. I will be your God, and you shall be my people.
We are Israel. Our Torah forbids the worship of race or nation, possessions or power.
You who worship gods that cannot save you, hear the words of the Eternal One. I am God, there is none else.
We are Israel. Our prophets proclaimed an exalted vision for the world.
Hate evil and love what is good. Let justice well up as waters and righteousness as a mighty stream.
We are Israel, schooled in the suffering of the oppressed.
You shall not oppress your neighbors nor rob them. You shall not stand idle while your neighbor bleeds.
We are Israel, taught to beat swords into plowshares, commanded to pursue peace.
Violence shall no longer be heard in your land, desolation and destruction within your borders. All your children will be taught of your God, and great shall be the peace of your children.
We are Israel, O God, when we are witnesses to your love and messengers of your truth.
You are my witnesses, says the Eternal One, and my servant whom I have chosen. Know me, therefore, and put your trust in me.
We are Israel, O God, when we proclaim you God our Redeemer, as did our ancestors on the shores of the Red Sea. Ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha neda b'kodesh, norati hilo tosef ele, norati hilo tosef ele. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la.
V'ne'emar, and it has been said, the Eternal One delivered Jacob and redeemed us from the hand of one stronger than ourselves. Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. We praise you, O God, Redeemer of Israel. And we move to page 92. I want to remind you, this prayer is said as a bedtime prayer also. It's an evening prayer because at night it gets dark, things get a little more intimidating at night. And so we say, may we lie down this night in peace and rise up to life renewed. O God, spread over us your shelter of peace, of quiet and calm, and bless us with rest. And let a time come when morning will bring no word of war or famine or anguish, a time of happiness, of contentment and rest. And this Hebrew, I don't know why they threw there in the middle, this Hebrew says, Baruch atah Adonai, praised are you Adonai. Hapores Simca Shalom, one who spreads over a sukkah of peace, Aleinu, upon us, va'al kol amo Yisrael, and on all of God's people Israel, va'al Yerushalayim, and on Jerusalem. We give thanks for the night and its rest, and the promise of peace for all the world. Vishameru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asod et ha-Shabbat לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. Shabbat. You know what Shabbat means? God rested. That's why God called it Shabbat, because Shabbat means God rested. And Vayinafash means to re-soul your soul, your nefesh. I love those words. God Shabbat and Vayinafash, and re-souled. God, it says rested and was refreshed. So before I ask you to stand up on page 93, I told you that there were 3 ways of spelling God's name in this book, and they reflected 3 different things. So on page 92, if you look at there's the line at the bottom of the paragraph that we just sang that has 2 words. If you look above that, the 3rd word in is Adonai, Yud He Vav He. And then if you look at the bottom line on page 93, the 3rd word in is Adonai. That's the 2 letters that are flying and coming down and looking over us and coming to us. But if you look at the first word in Hebrew, in the teeny letters in the middle of page 93, you see the 3rd way that we spell Adonai. This is actually spelling out the word that sounds like ah. There's the duh with a dingle-dangle doohickey on it, and the O vowel going over it, the narrow nose nun, and then the yud afterwards, Adonai. That's the vowels for Adonai. Often if you see the word Yud He Vav He spelled in scriptures, you will see these vowels placed on those consonants to tell you that when you say it, even though it looks like the vowels Yud He Vav He, you're supposed to pronounce it Adonai. Sometimes you see the vowels for Elohim, even though it's the same consonants, and that tells you that even though you're looking at Yud He Vav He, you're supposed to say it Elohim. That's a story for another time. Page 93, we begin the section of the service called the Tefillah, which means the prayer part. Please rise if it's comfortable for you to stand. If not, please stay seated. This little prayer, the reason why it's got little letters there is because it is a prayer that tells us that we're getting ready to pray. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips that my mouth may declare your glory. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, ve'Elohei Rachel, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, ve'Koneh HaKol, ve'Zocher Chaste Avot ve'Imahot, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. In the middle of 94, God of all generations, of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, of Sarah, Rebekah, Leah and Rachel, be praised. Your wondrous creative power fills heaven and earth.
God of life and death, be praised. Through us, send help to the falling, healing to the sick, freedom to the captive. Confirm your faithfulness to those who sleep in the dust.
Awesome and holy God, be praised. With acts of love and truth, we hallow your name. As it is said, be holy, For I, your eternal God, am holy.
God of times and seasons, be praised. Enable us, through Sabbath rest, to explore and learn and impart the meanings of your Torah. Make our hearts ready to serve you this day and all days.
God who answers prayer. You may be seated, sorry. I was too distracted by all those words that we just said. God who answers prayer, be praised. May we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer, wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land, in Zion, in Sion restored, in all lands, you are our God.
Source of life and its wonders, be praised. You are the miracle within all we behold. You are goodness, you are compassion. We give thanks to you forever.
Join me, please, in the paragraph below the Hebrew.
God of peace, of justice, and of love, be praised. Inspire us to banish forever hatred, war, and bloodshed. Help us to establish forever one human family united in peace. God of peace, bless us with peace. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim La'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim La'olam. Ki ata hu melech adon lekol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech adon lekol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim La'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim La'olam. V'tov enecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael b'kol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim La'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim La'olam. Tasim La'olam. Tasim La'olam.
We take a moment of silent prayer. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. ואמרו אמן. At this time in our service, our hearts and our prayers turn to all who are ill, recuperating, dealing with the consequences of COVID-19 or confinement, coping with disasters or recent death of loved ones. We turn to the inside back cover of our prayer books. And I'm not going to call out any names online, but if you would like to call out names of people for whom you would like us to be praying for healing, I invite you to call some names out. For all these names, for the names we choose to hold in our hearts and not say out loud, we pray together. O God, in our hearts we name those who are facing illness and pain. We join our prayers with the prayers of all who love them. Give them renewed comfort and courage. Strengthen them the healing powers you have placed within us all. Guide the hands and hearts of those who are entrusted with their care. May the knowledge of your love and ours give added hope to them and to their dear ones. May they find even greater strength because our prayers are linked to theirs. Baruch atah Adonai, Rofeh HaCholim. We praise you, eternal God, the source of healing and health. I'm going to add another mini prayer in the middle here. I have a lot of people who I know and care about who are either about to take big exams, medical, legal, all kinds, or just took some, and a little bit of extra strength and courage and perseverance for them would be really helpful right now. So please keep them in your hearts. But we have also come to have a tradition that says that on behalf of the military, the police, the firefighters, the EMTs, the doctors, the nurses, and veterans, we add, Mishebarach avotenu ve'imotenu, may the one who blessed and protected our ancestors guard all those whom we've entrusted with the responsibility of defending our freedom, protecting us, or healing us in this country, in the land of Israel, and everywhere they've been called to serve. Give them courage to succeed and strength to persevere. May they return home safely. And let us say, Amen. So I wanted to share something briefly that I've already kind of alluded to. I had this thought that's tied into what happens every time we come back to Shabbat. Often I've asked you to look back at the week before. It's one of my favorite exercises because it's sometimes hard to do, to look back, even if it's only 7 days. What did you do? What did you not do? What are you proud of? What are you not proud of over the last week? And often, there was a year before pandemic where almost every time I saw you, I would say, when you wake up in the morning, figure out what it is that you're going to do that day that's going to change the world. What are you going to do that's going to change the world? But today I had this other thought for you. It's a little bit dependent on the fact that tomorrow's Torah portion, the Torah portion we're reading about this week, it reminds it's Moses still in his swan song trying to send us off into the promised land, and he doesn't get to go. And he reminds us that if we keep the commandments, God will bless us in wonderful ways. And if we don't keep the commandments, it's not good. But it starts off with the word ekev, which means something like, they translate it usually as if, but it's also the word that comes from, Yaakov, the heel that he was holding on to. And they say, why did they use that word for if you keep the commandments? And they say that there are some kinds of commandments that are so ordinary that's as if they're underfoot. Like you don't even think about them. They're there all the time. And are those the most important ones to keep? The everyday ones, the ones that feel like they're so too simple to keep? Or are they the most important because they're there all the time? And it got me thinking that, first of all, that's your commercial for joining us tomorrow for Torah study, because we're going to have fun tomorrow at Torah study, and it's on Zoom, so I don't know how much, you wear your pajamas, it doesn't bother us. But it got me thinking, combining all of those things, that if I started to hear, what if you say your name? Say your name out loud. Everybody say your name out loud. Just say your name out loud. And if you all say your name out loud, I'm going to pop you. I just expected a whole congregation of people saying your name out loud. Say your name out loud. And then I want you to say eternal before it. So if I say Jana, but then I say eternal Jana, and imagine yourself to be eternal. And then you're imagining Shabbat is starting or a day is starting, and you think of yourself as eternal, that you have forever to accomplish things. What would you do differently if you had forever to accomplish something? What would your to-do list look like if you knew you had forever? Would you change what your goals were? Would you change what your personal goals are? I mean, cleaning out that junk drawer, would you do that because you have forever now in life, or you just leave it alone? Would you change what your job goals are? Would you change the goals for the world? Would you change your family goals if you knew that you had forever? And I don't mean forever as in, so it really doesn't matter how long I take to do it, I can procrastinate now forever, and I don't have to worry about that junk drawer because I have forever. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about if you knew you had a long time to be able to accomplish what you want. And then the opposite. What if you said not just your name and eternal, but what if you said, hi, I am mortal Jana. I know I have a limited time in this world to do what I need to. As of now in your life, how would you redefine your goals? What would you do differently if you knew that as of now, you have a limited time? And so choose your goals wisely. Figure out what your personal goals are, and what your family goals are, and what your work goals are, and what you can do for the world. And because the Torah portion mentions God and what we need to do to be in covenant with God, what about if you are eternal? What would be your relationship with God goals? And what would be your relationship with God goals for if you're eternal or if you're mortal? How would they change for you? And it got me thinking. And I hope that helps you to think. I don't want to know your answers unless you want to share them with me. But I just thought that was a helpful way for me to try to put into perspective what's important and what's not in my life. But it also makes some goals easier to achieve, believe it or not, when you put them into perspective. It makes it easier to figure out what you want to do and what you don't want to do. Madam President, do you want to tell us what we want to do and what we don't want to do? You want me to bring you a microphone down there, or you want to come up? Okay.
Shabbat Shalom to all of you here. I'm glad to see you. And joining us online. Rabbi Jana has an Onyx Shabbat tonight on Zoom. It'll begin about 30 minutes after the service ends. Check the website for details about how to join. We will also have a 9:45 a.m. Zoom Torah study and 11 a.m. service tomorrow morning that, like I said, will be on Zoom. The annual meeting for the North Louisiana Jewish Federation is at 10 a.m. this Sunday, August 1st at Agudath Achim. Anyone from the Jewish community who donates at least $25 to the Federation is eligible to attend. Hear about the plans for scholar in residence, holiday programs, trips to New Orleans and Israel-Palestinian concert, and a presentation from the project to save the B'nai Zion building on Cotton Street, and more. There will be bagels and more. Following the meeting, there will also be a Shiva Minyan for Anna Marie Ain. At 6 p.m. Tuesday night, Rabbi Jana will host Together Tuesday, where people from all backgrounds get an opportunity to talk to each other and share some spiritual moments. Sign up for it on Zoom. Details for going to the event are on the B'nai Zion website. Next Friday is Simca Shabbat, where we honor everyone with birthdays and anniversaries in August. If you want to include your name in this year's memorial book, the deadline is August 23rd. The form is available at the B'nai Zion website to fill out online or print out or to get to the office. You should also receive a printed package soon. Donations were made to B'nai Zion Sisterhood Flower Fund in loving memory of Minnie Manassas by the Lewis and McGovern families, and in loving memory of A.L. Weiner by Sheila Lawrence and family.
Okay.
Shabbat Shalom, stay safe, wear your mask.
Wear your mask, get your vaccine. We should say that. And I'm going to tweak Manasseh and Weiner. We continue on page 148, and we rise as the ark is open. Guess what's in there? Oh no, that's okay. We do things differently for 1 week, and we don't remember what to do. You saw what I forgot to do? I forgot things. Torah. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. And on the facing page we are going to sing.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
Look how happy those Torah scrolls are on down there. Do you see how happy they are? They look so happy down there, but there are no kids to enjoy them right now. We got to get rid of this horrible virus so that we can have kids around. So make everybody safe. You may be seated when the ark is closed. Stay happy, Toras. We continue on page 151. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. We include in that the 5 people in the military who have died in the United States this year, 176 police officers, including 83 that were COVID-related, and 3 officers from Louisiana, including 12 canine officers and 62 firefighters, including 22 that were COVID-related, including 1 firefighter from Louisiana. And as of this morning, there were 10,999 deaths to COVID in Louisiana since the beginning. That's not since January. Caddo Parish had 770 deaths so far. 770 deaths in Caddo Parish. We're not that big. The United States has had over 612,000 people, and the world has had over 4,200,000 people die of this. And I think that we can do better to stop this thing. Let's get rid of this thing. As we remember everyone who has died, we say those names now because some of them we don't know if they've been buried or not, and it's our tradition not to say Kaddish until they've been buried. But as we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. I invite you to turn to page 153. In nature's ebb and flow, your eternal law abides. As you are our support in the struggles of life, so also are you our hope in death. In your care, O God, are the souls of all the living and the spirits of all flesh. Your power gives us strength. Your love comforts us. O life of our life, soul of our soul, cause your light to shine into our hearts. Fill us with trust in you and turn us again to the tasks of life. And may the memory of our loved ones inspire us to continue their work for the coming of your sovereign rule. However brief may be our time on earth, O God, you endow our fleeting days with abiding worth. We now recall the loved ones whom death has taken from us these past 30 days. We remember Jean Stein and Anne-Marie Ain. And we remember the congregants' parents who died this past year. We remember Sophie Lipo, Robert Talbert, Joseph Paris, Artis Robinson, George Rothkopf, Henry Brenner, Ron Riley, and Fred Phillips. And as we remember those who died at this season in years past, we take them into our hearts with our own. Those for whom we are observing yortzites this past week include Alfred E. Bailey, Philip A. Bergman, Warren Leroy Courtney, Leo Friedman, Rosina Willer Gam, Elisa Ginsberg, Abe Goldman, Betty Goldman, August Goldstein, Paul Gruber, Fanny B. Helperin, Kate Kahn, Marshall C. Keith, David Kessler, Ned Michael Lazarus, Lillian Levy, Minnie P. Manasseh, Thelma Mills, Ida B. Rosen, Dr. Boris Weinstein, and my grandpa, Al Weiner. In this moment of memory, our griefs and sympathies are mingled. Loving God, we rise as together we praise your name. The Mourner's Kaddish is found on page 154. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'amlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yom echon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehe shemei Rabbah mevarach la'alam u'almei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemei d'kudsha barichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehe Shalama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chaim Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimromav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. Amen. Please be seated. That sounds good, Max. He's wearing a mask. Because Adam said he likes this song. Bim bum, bim 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 bum, bim 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 bum, chitty bitty bitty bim bum, bim 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 bum, bim 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 bum. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Wait. So we do, yeah, because on Shabbat you have to do things differently. So how do you clap most of the week? So on Shabbat, find another way to clap, whatever it is. We suggest something like this. If you feel very creative, you might be going like this. You could be doing like this. Whatever it is that's different. Think of a way to do things differently. Your brain needs to think differently. Shabbat is a day. It's a vacation, remember? A vacation in time. Think of a way to do it differently. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Bim bum, bim 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 bum, bim 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 bum, chitty bitty bitty bim bum, bim 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 bum, bim 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 bum. When we do our Kiddush Shabbat, we start off with that. We call it the Shabbat March. And we have to we do spinning and jumping, and it's a very exhausting song. I'm not going to lie to you. Please rise for the closing benediction. Thank you. It is a blessing for us to be here together. It's a blessing for people to stay home and safe. Yivarechecha. Adonai v'yishmerecha, may God bless you. May God protect you. Yair Adonai panav elecha v'choneka, may the light of God's face shine upon you. Can you feel it? Be gracious to you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom, may God's face be looking up to you. May God grant you peace. Shabbat Shalom. Make sure you get to know somebody you didn't know before, because I'm seeing people here that you may not have known everybody before tonight. You don't have to get close and personal. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Half an hour, give me half an hour, and the Zoom will be on. We get to visit on Zoom. Shabbat Shalom. Hey.